Ladies and gentlemen, we are under attack. Our very way of life, our very existence is threatened. They have already taken over Washington. They continue to destroy our Constitution. It is time to take back our country now.
The Wise Conservative Show, bringing wisdom back to politics.
So how much privilege do you actually have? This is a question that was asked by a middle school in Florida. Hello everybody and good afternoon. My name is Connor Wise and I will be your host here today of The Wise Conservative Show. I would like to apologize right off the bat. This is not a live episode. I have a previous engagement that I had to attend, but I did want to record an episode for you guys. So here you go. It's not live, but it's pre-recorded here. But I want to get some content out, and I also apologize for the week break. We are back, and we are here, and we are going to keep on putting out episodes on a weekly basis. So, as I said right in the beginning, how much privilege do you actually have? Well, Fox News has recently reported, actually today, that a middle school in Florida gave a quiz to students to ask them how much privilege they actually have. Well, these young students were asked about religion, skin color, and, well, they were even asked about sexual orientation. The teacher literally asked these 12 or 13-year-olds to state whether they identified as straight, homosexual, bisexual, asexual, or pansexual. Now, before I get into, quite honestly, a tangent about this, I don't really know what a pansexual is, and, well, I'm a lot older than 12 years old. I guarantee that these young, innocent 12-year-old minds are not going to know what a pansexual is. A lot of them won't even know what an asexual is. This is quite honestly an atrocity that is happening in this Florida middle school. And, well, you know how forums they used to ask you about your gender with options being male or female. Well, the sad thing is, on this quiz, those two were not even options. The only options for gender were transgender, cisgender, or genderqueer. They don't even have male or female in the options. Quite honestly, those are the only two genders that I'm aware of. Those are the only two genders that actually exist according to your DNA. Those are the only two genders that should be on this quiz, if you're even giving it. Those are the only two genders that should be on any form. There should be no sliding scale that these liberals are trying to put on everything. You're either male or female. It's whatever you were born with. It's whatever your DNA says you are. That ain't going to change whether you get a surgery. Your DNA still says whether you're male or you're female. And quite honestly, liberals need to realize that. But I really bring this up, not just because of the idiocracy that this is, but I bring it up because this is literally liberal indoctrination in front of our eyes. This is the finest example of liberal indoctrination that you are going to see in a long time, because it is taking these 12-year-old minds, these 12-year-old children in a public school, and is making them answer whether they're asexual, whether they're pansexual. And I mean, they're in 6th grade, they're in 7th grade. These are very young children. These are very impressionable children. These are children whose minds are being changed by this liberal indoctrination. These are children whose entire life is being changed because of this liberal indoctrination. Now, I really wanted to point out something that I've actually noticed about this. These people who are supporting stuff like this, these people who are saying that we should be teaching about pansexuals and whatever, gender queers and all of these different terms that they've added a jillion different letters to their stupid movement. These are the same people that go to these Trump rallies and protest against those who don't share their views. These are the same people that try to take away our First Amendment right to support whatever candidate we want. These are the same people that have induced violence at Donald Trump rallies, and the same people who have killed a Donald Trump supporter. These are the same people that are trying to take away your First Amendment right, people. Now, these same people, they're not just now trying to take away your First Amendment right to support whatever candidate you want. Now, they are going into the classroom, and they are trying to teach your children how to think. They're trying to teach your children that, well, this is normal, that there are more than two genders. That's not even what science says. Science does not say that there's more than two genders. Because quite honestly, there is not. This liberal indoctrination has gone very far. This liberal indoctrination has gone too far. But it's going to continue unless we keep making these stories very exposed, unless we keep hammering down on the people who give these quizzes, these teachers, unless we hammer down on the people who really think that this is okay. Now, I know a lot of liberals say this is First Amendment. People can protest at these Donald Trump rallies. People can, well, this is a teacher. They can give whatever quiz they want. But this is not true at all. This is a classroom. It is dedicated to learning, not to deciding how much privilege a certain student has. Not to give them a quiz to basically judge them based on their skin color, based on their religion, based on whether they're straight. That is not okay. This is hypocrisy, is what it is. These liberals claim that they are being tolerant, they claim that they are accepting, but then those people, like these ones, who are quote-unquote privileged because they're white, they go and discriminate against them. Those people who are quote-unquote privileged because they're Christians, they discriminate against them. We can see this happening time after time where the liberal movement, the left, and this LGBT movement, they go and they completely put businesses into the ground. They completely ruin people's lives because they refuse to bake a cake. This is a horrible situation, and this is something that is happening every day. They are invading not only our classroom, not only these rallies for our candidates, but they're invading our businesses too, and forcing people to give them different products, even though the business should hold the right to refuse service to anyone. And the business does hold that right. But these people go in there and they take away those rights. These people go in there and they tell them that they have to serve these people because they're lesbian, because they're gay, because they're whatever different sexuality that they have come up with. That's just not right, folks. It's not right whatsoever. And it's going to continue as long as this liberal indoctrination is happening in our school system. Now, just today, actually, my brother, who is co-host of this show, showed me a picture of a wall that has been erected on his campus. Now, I'm not sure if he's talked about this in one of his shows, but there is a wall on his college campus that is for quote-unquote free Palestine. Now, if you're like me, you already know what's wrong with this right off the bat. But this wall is even worse than just, quote-unquote free Palestine. This wall has different statements on it. All of these statements are essentially Palestinian propaganda. They all say that Israel is horrible, that Israel is murdering innocent people. They all say that Israel is the bad guys in this. They all say that Israel are the only ones that are firing rockets, that Israel is the only one using military tactics. And that's just not true. That is not true whatsoever. It never once mentions the hundreds of innocent civilians that have been killed in Israel, these Israelis that have been killed by the terrorist organization that is Hamas. This terrorist organization that Palestine not only fosters, but supports. This is just horrible. This wall is an utter disgrace to our school system. This wall is an utter disgrace to our country. How can this Palestinian wall even be allowed to be put up there, but then people get kicked out of colleges for saying their mind, their conservative viewpoints? It's an utter disgrace. I don't understand how the left does not realize that Israel is not in the wrong here, that Israel is defending themselves from a terrorist organization. Hamas is recognized as a terrorist organization not only by our own country, but also by the entire UN. But the left does not seem to realize this. Liberals do not seem to realize that this terrorist organization is attacking one of our greatest allies. That this terrorist organization is killing hundreds of innocent civilians in Israel. I don't understand how they can ignore this huge fact. I don't understand why they do not look up the facts about this conflict instead of just listening to MSNBC or CNN. These college students that have seen this wall, they're not going back to their dorms to look up actual facts. They're not going to look up whether Palestine is supporting a terrorist organization. They're not going to look to see if Israel is actually defending themselves, if it's Palestine that has been ruining the ceasefires for years on end. They're not going to look up these facts. They're not going to look up whether Israel should continue to be our ally, which they should, because that's too much work for them. I'm quite honestly ashamed that so many people in my generation, so many millennials, are too lazy to look up actual facts about these geopolitical issues that we are currently facing. It's astounding how many people are too lazy to go just get on their laptop, get on their phone, get on something, and look up the facts. They would rather watch CNN and get biased viewpoints. They would rather watch these different liberal media centers. They'd rather watch BuzzFeed, for God's sake, over actually looking up facts. I don't know what the hell is wrong with these people. They are not thinking. They are not acting. Because if they actually were thinking, they would realize that conservatives are right here. That supporting Israel is the right way to go, because they are not only our greatest ally in the Middle East, but they're also innocent here. I've heard many liberals attack Israel because they don't have as many civilian deaths as Palestine. The only reason that Israel doesn't have as many civilian deaths is because we set up a perimeter in Israel, the Iron Dome. We set up this rocket system which intercepts the rockets that is being fired from the Gaza Strip. That's the only reason. Palestine has fired way more rockets at Israel than Israel has fired at Palestine. But, once again, liberals do not look up the facts. Millennials are not looking up the facts. And this is exactly why so many millennials are going towards Bernie Sanders. This is exactly why so many millennials seem to be liberal. They're too lazy to look up the facts first off. That's a huge reason why they're turning out to be liberal. But then they have this second fact of this liberal indoctrination that is going on with the Free Palestine wall that is up on this college campus, with this quiz to see how much privilege these 12-year-olds have. This liberal indoctrination is just adding to the laziness that the millennials, my generation, they have right now. This laziness that is affecting their political views towards the wrong way. Towards a way that is going to be devastating for our country. Towards a way that is not going to help us get out of this debt that we are currently in. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
The idea behind Youth Revolt is to let them, these liberal professors, let them know that we are here and we're ready to fight.
Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
This is Dakota Wise, co-host of The Wise Conservative Show, here with an exclusive preview.
I can guarantee that all of these illegal executive actions that President Obama has tried to take would be ruled legal, and the president would be allowed to legislate instead of executing the law that the Congress and the American people have put up in front of him.
For more content, find us at Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative.
Tune in to Millennials Rising, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday nights, for a conservative outlook on pop culture and American politics. Together we can reinstitute values back into our nation's young people and help create an alternative path away from the mainstream liberal agenda. Tune in to Millennials Rising, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday nights, only on Youth Revolt.
Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I am your host, Connor Wise. Now, we're going to be sticking on this topic for a little bit longer of liberal indoctrination. So, I have actually noticed, and I have experienced throughout my life within these public school systems in California, that it is a very extreme issue. This is not just going on in middle schools like in Florida. This is not going on in colleges only, just like with my brother. This is going on in our high schools as well. You see, I've had to deal with this indoctrination firsthand many times just this past year. I have this class for our speech and debate club. Our coach of the team is the teacher for this said class. So, multiple times this year, our teacher or coach, whatever you would like to call him, has shown us multiple Democracy Now! Videos. Now, if you aren't aware, Democracy Now! Is a very left-leaning media group. Some might say that they are pretty extremist. They are very liberal-leaning, very liberal-biased, and quite honestly, I don't know why anyone watches them. These videos have vouched for socialism. These videos have vouched for all whites to pay reparations for what happened 200 years ago in slavery. These videos have repeatedly shown very extreme liberal viewpoints. They have shown these viewpoints multiple times throughout this one school year. Now, you might think that this is speech and debate, that we'd have an educated discussion, that we'd have a debate after watching these videos. Well, the fact of the matter is, we don't. We don't have a discussion about this, we don't have a debate. If anything, our teacher or coach, he goes up, he goes in front of the room, or just stays sitting where he is. He says why he thinks this is true, why he thinks whites should pay these reparations, why he thinks socialism is the best option, and then we move on. We don't talk about why whites should not be paying for what happened 200 years ago. He doesn't mention that we shouldn't be having these socialist ideals. He doesn't mention any of this. None of us are even able to discuss this. Because then he just shows us another TED Talk or another Democracy Now! Video. It's quite honestly astounding the amount of liberal indoctrination that goes on in that one class. It's astounding the amount of liberal bias that goes on in that one class. We don't have any chance to refute him. And this is not okay. This liberal indoctrination has essentially brainwashed much of America. It has brainwashed enough students. It has brainwashed enough of the millennial generation. It's time for us, all of us, as conservatives, to stand up to this injustice. It's time for all of us as conservatives, as students, as millennials, to stand up and be heard, to show these liberal teachers, these liberal professors, that we aren't going to sit through this, that we're not going to allow them to shove this down our throats, that we do have an opinion, that there is another side to the argument, that we're not going to be dealing with these quizzes that show us how much privilege we have, that we're not going to be looking at these walls that are very biased towards Palestine, that we're not going to be forced to watch these Democracy Now! Videos. These are all very common examples of what goes on in our country. These are all very common examples of the liberal indoctrination that's happening in our school system throughout the entire country. This is not limited to just California. This is not limited to just Florida. This goes on in all 50 states. Every single one of them has an issue like this. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm not in California, I'm not in Florida, this won't happen to me, I'm not in a liberal state, I'm not in New York. Well, that's just not true. This is going on in every state. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican state or if it's a liberal state, whether it's Texas or California. This is going on, and this is happening day after day. This brainwashing, this indoctrination is going on every single school day. We can't just sit by. We can't sit by and let this happen more and more. We have to come together as conservatives. And quite honestly, right now, conservatives are not together. Our movement is very divided at the moment between people who support Donald Trump, people who support Ted Cruz, and etc. All of these different sections in the conservative movement, we have to come together, guys. We are not going to be able to defeat all of this liberal indoctrination that is going on if we're so divided. We need to follow Ronald Reagan's 11th commandment. Thou shalt not insult another Republican. Because we shouldn't. We shouldn't be arguing with ourselves over petty issues. We should be proving to America that Republicans are the best way to go, that conservative policies are the best way to go. Now, I'm going to be moving on to a different section of this video that you might be wondering at first what this has to do with the rest of the episode. Just hang on tight. I'll explain in a little bit what this has to do with the rest of these issues that I've been talking about throughout the entire episode. So the TSA recently spent $47,600 on an app. This app, well, you might think it has huge significance, that it does a lot. Yeah, nope. This app literally points left or right. It tells people what line to go into. It was designed to make it harder for terrorists to guess what line they are going to go in. And it was designed to limit the amount of racial profiling being used by TSA agents. Because that's the biggest issue in America right now. Profiling whether someone's a terrorist or not. Folks, this is exactly why we are $19.1 trillion in debt. We continue to waste taxpayer dollars on these useless things. We continue to spend taxpayer dollars on programs like this, on making these useless apps, on researching golf in space. We've spent millions upon millions of dollars on building one gas station in the Middle East. Yes, you heard me right. That was just one gas station. Now, you do remember that I told you to sit tight, and I would tie this into the rest of the episode. Well, this does tie into the rest of this liberal indoctrination-centered episode that I spoke of earlier for many reasons. These students that are being indoctrinated are the ones who are going to have to deal with the debt. My generation, the millennials, these students, we are going to have to get our country out of the ever-growing hole that our overbearing government has dug itself into. We are going to be the ones that have to reverse these wasteful spending policies to once again make America prosper, to once again make America the greatest country on this earth. But we can't do that if this liberal indoctrination is still going on. Because if this is still going on, we won't have as many conservatives, we won't have many people who actually know the issues. If this liberal indoctrination continues, we will have an entire generation of people who think we can afford more social programs, such as free healthcare or free college. These people that currently support self-proclaimed socialist Bernie Sanders. We will have more people who don't realize that it is our taxpayer dollars that are funding these wasteful programs. When have you ever heard of a government agency, a government program, a government organization that does things more efficiently than the free market? Well, I guarantee you won't be able to come up with one example. The government is not efficient no matter what. The government is wasteful. The government is using our taxpayer dollars to fund useless programs. The free market works much better, and if this liberal indoctrination continues, we will not be able to save our country from destroying our free market policies. Because these uneducated students, the millennials, those who are uneducated, will not be able to realize that these programs will not work in America. That we cannot add another $18 trillion expenditure that Bernie Sanders wants to add. This is why it's a very large issue. This is an issue that has to be solved soon, or else our entire country is going to be set for a very bumpy ride in the near future. Our entire country is going to be plagued with more and more debt and more wasteful spending. These issues are very tied together. If we don't solve one, we won't solve the other. And this is exactly why our party, our conservative movement, has to come together. It has to bind together, fight together against this indoctrination, against this liberal bias in the classroom. This is a very vital issue that has to be solved. This is a very vital issue that needs to be solved. This is not an option. We have to do this, or else our entire country is going to be doomed. We are going to have over $30 trillion of debt by the time the millennials are in office. This just can't happen. Folks, we have to realize that this is very vital. Folks, we have to realize that this is a necessity. And with that, that is the end of this episode of the Wise Conservative Show. I would like to thank you for tuning in, and I would like to thank you for once again listening to the Wise Conservative Show. We're on Tuesdays and Thursdays on Youth Revolt and on The Wise Conservative on Spreaker.com. Thank you and have a good night.